Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our series, 1000 Days and Beyond. As we have shared with you earlier, this is a series wherein we bring in guests every week, every time that we do the series. May not necessarily always be every week, but every time that we do the series, we bring in guests who have dived very deep into the domain of early childhood care and education. Last time, those of you who joined us, you heard from Ms. Uma Mahadevan, who is the Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Karnataka currently. But more than that, someone who, as an administrator, has worked very deeply in this domain. We heard from her the critical aspects of ECCE, what the state intends to do here in Karnataka, what administrators have been thinking about it, as she has also worked in the central government positions, and many other aspects with regard to ECCE is what Uma ma'am had shared with us. Those of you who missed it, it would also be available on our YouTube channel. Today, I again have my colleague Kinnari, who is also very deeply involved in this space and has had many years of experience with regard to curricular development, with regard to engaging with teachers in the space, and multiple other aspects of ECC. Right now, I would invite Kinnari over to do two things. One, Kinnari, I think it would be interesting for our audience to also hear from you your own experience in ECC. And after that, I would invite you to introduce our guest for today, Dr. Jigisha Shastri. Kinnari, over to you.
Thank you, Rishi, and a very warm welcome to all of you again. Just to introduce myself, I'm Kinnari, and I have been interested in working with people from very early on, as a young individual, and seeing society, seeing children, and happened to pursue a formal degree in human development and family studies as a specialization from Maharaja Sayajirao University, the Faculty of Home Science. And then pursued social work because I thought that was an area that one should focus on, and gives you the skills to work in the sector. And work got me into education, and with education, the core of child and children, and working with children, developing programs for children. So teacher education programs, curricula for children, programs at the university for professionals to be trained, policy work for different states. So it's been a journey, quite a bit, Rishi, over the last 15 to 18 years in the space and with the child at the center. So thinking of the child, thinking of what would enable the child to achieve the child's potential, and how do you work within education, right? Education and the child is at the heart of educational processes.
Right.
Developing our field programs, the Sangareddy ECCE program that has now been 10 years of its span. So yeah, it's been quite a rewarding journey, I should say. And I would thank this deep engagement in the discipline of developmental psychology and education at large. I ended up doing a second master's to understand education again. And there too, one saw how closely and how integral, education across stages of development is,
Right.
and how central child development as a discipline is for thinking about education. So yeah, it's been a rewarding journey and a pleasure to be a part of this series that we have now launched to extend the dialogue on early childhood education. Today's times, like we were discussing in our last webinar, that this decade has been so critical for bringing the thrust on ECC, and the next 20-25 years would actually hopefully shift the status of education and learning in every child, provided we get our basics right, and which is the foundational years right. So with that context, happy to have our second speaker today, Dr. Jigisha Shastri. Welcome. Dr. Jigisha's brief introduction here, and I think she's been a mentor, a guide for a whole lot of us at the Azim Premji University. A very formal introduction, and my pleasure to be doing this. Jigisha is an early childhood care and education specialist with over 40 years of experience in this space. A dynamic ECCE leader with experience in teaching, research, and development work on the ground, policy and programs on the ground. She's been instrumental in conceptualizing the private sector as well as public sector ECCE programs. And Gujarat, where she belongs from, and Maharaja Sayajirao University as her alma mater also. She's at the state level in Gujarat. She's anchored and led a range of early childhood initiatives. Has contributed to several national efforts, including work with the Indira Gandhi National Open University, the NCERT, and other such forums. She has, like I just mentioned, she has been associated with the Azim Premji Foundation and the university since 2013 and has been an integral part of developing the early childhood program at the foundation, the field programs, as well as the university teaching programs. And the Sangareddy Early Childhood Initiative that I just spoke about, the foundation's flagship program in early childhood education, which we started in 2013. She's been an integral part, a core team member of that program. As a professional for the last so many years, she's authored books for children, for teachers, for early childhood professionals. And we happen to have also co-edited a book for the teaching early childhood profession. The book is called Teaching the Young, the Early Childhood Profession in India, that was published by Orient Black Swan early this year, 2024. If you've not had a look at it, we recommend that you go through it. It's a interesting compilation of the range of professional development initiatives of early childhood educators and how we see the profession in India today. Jigisha was selected by the World Forum Foundation as a global leader from India in the year 2009-10 and was an ARNEC representative for India. ARNEC is the Asia Pacific Regional Network of Early Childhood, and quite a diverse set of professionals come together at that network, and Jigisha has been a representative of that. So welcome, and we look forward to this dialogue with you today.
Thank you, Kinnari. Thank you, Rishi. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, wonderful, Jigisha. Thanks so much once again. Just before you begin, a couple of things from what Kinnari shared. I think we should, Kinnari, do one episode on the book, right? And I think that would be very interesting and useful for those interested in the space.
That's
and we will announce it when we plan to do that. And you did refer a couple of times to our Sangareddy initiative of the Azim Premji Foundation. This is the one wherein we have been working very closely with all the Anganwadis in the Sangareddy district. So that's something that probably we could also have one of our colleagues from the Field Institute come and speak about it, right? So two ideas that just came about, and I thought that that would be interesting. Just one thing on the logistics. For those of you who are here live today, you having any questions, please just straight away put it on the chat box. Since there are two of us here as today's facilitators, we would be looking at your questions, and just to keep the dialogue, we could bring in your questions to Jigisha. I presume it would be for Dr. Jigisha, so we would bring it in through our dialogue to Jigisha. So please feel free to just put in your question as and when they come to your mind. So Jigisha, over to you. Really looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us today.
So maybe I'll begin with talking about my own journey, Rishi Kinnari, and which also kind of gives an idea of the early childhood space and how it became a space for me or a niche for me. So like Kinnari just said, I also happen to be a student of the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, and I don't ever remember a time when I was not interested in learning about children. So it seems very funny at this stage. Sometimes when people talk about it, from the other side, I think, is this really true? But yeah, for me, it is like from ever. Maybe it was because there was a lot of dialogue happening in my home around children and what do children do and why do they do that. Or maybe that is what attracted me. There must be so many other conversations going on, but maybe that was the conversation that attracted me. So from ever I wanted to do something or study about children, their development, why do they do things that they do. A lot of episodes in my life also kind of caught on. I still can't forget one episode, like when I was a student in, I think I must be in my primary school years, and I had a classmate whose parent came to the class, and the child wasn't doing too well in the school, like the typical academic way that was there. So, and the parent came to the school, the class was on, the teacher was teaching, and the parent just came in, barged in, called the child in the front, and not only scolded, because at that time even hitting children was so very common, or maybe it is even today. So in front of this whole class of 40 children, here is the child standing in front, being hit by the parent, with the teacher taken aback, all of us, like, also taken aback and scared a little bit. And I still can't forget this whole episode. And I went back home and I had so many questions. So just to say that how ideas keep on, generate in your mind, and how your interest gets generated. So all of these made me more and more stronger about my resolution that I did want to do something with children. And I was fortunate that the home science faculty in Vadodara in Gujarat happened to have a very good child development, then became a human development department. I did all my basic degrees from there, and it just flowed. So my bachelor's and my master's, and then again after master's worked for quite a few years. That was also a very interesting journey, because in the beginning I was just interested in doing research, because I wanted to know about children. So I was just interested in research, and I joined research projects, even did a stint with ISRO, because the Indian Space Research Organization and the one...
Sorry, I'm just going to come in.
Yeah,
Jigisha.
please.
No, there is a little lag, the internet lag. Rishi, is that something that you experienced too?
No, not much for me. Once or twice, maybe there was a bit of a freeze from Jigisha's side, but otherwise, I think we are good.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So,
sorry,
Jigisha, you were about to begin the ISRO.
And my
ISRO
Wi-Fi
bit
is
of your
showing
experience.
strong link.
Yeah.
So I did a little, as I said, a short stint, and at that time, television came to India because it was supposed to reach the masses and be a tool for development. I mean, that's why television came. Today, it's become a whole medium of entertainment, but that's why television came. And ISRO Ahmedabad at that particular point was doing a lot of work with villages in and around Ahmedabad. And so I joined this, and we were doing a lot of impact studies, impact of these television programs for farmers, for women. So that was something, but I again came back to my department. In fact, I continued my journey with my department, with my own alma mater. And then from then on, then also I started a center of my own. And so what I'm trying to say is, in the beginning of my career, and I was trying to find what interests me about this whole bit of working with children, understanding children. So I had a center of my own, worked with children, and then by chance got into teaching at the university. And I discovered I loved it. I love the fact that I can communicate to my students, I can reach out, talk about a subject that I'm so passionate about. And Similarly, while studying, because the course offered a whole lifespan perspective on development, but my liking for the subject of children, so child development, continued. And not only that, as my work progressed, my interest started concentrating around the younger children. So mainly 3 to 6 years, expanded over a period to 3 to 8, and now, of course, it has continued from birth to 8 and parents, etc. So this continued again. After this, I went back to studies, did my MPhil PhD in this area, continued my little work also with television, trying to understand children and their interactions with television, etc. While doing all of these, so I'll also like to give credit to my department, because the program did focus on all the three, for students as well as for the faculty. By all the three, I mean the academic, the theoretical part. So for a teacher or a faculty to teach, and for the students to get the theoretical idea about development, a lot of research focus from the undergrad days, and also a lot of development or field work focus. So for me, from the time that I started with my specialization, which in a 3 year undergrad course was the second year, I've been doing all of these three. And then over a period, as I started teaching, I also continued with my students to do research, my own research projects, all concentrating in and around early years, 3 to 8. So I've also done a lot of researches with 6 to 8 year olds, but this whole span of 3 to 8 was the focus. And my interest in the field, I could maintain by myself going to the field, but our students were placed there. And so placed in different settings, and we had to go. And I used to love doing that. Go to the field, interact with the people on field, children on field, look at what's happening. It continued over a long period. And slowly, a kind of a niche within child development and early years started getting created. So I was also doing a lot of workshops with parents of schools in and around Baroda, with teachers. And then ultimately, over a period, I discovered that my interest or the concentration of my work, I wanted to be on young children in disadvantaged settings. And I also started working with the government of Gujarat since a very young age. So the public sector, building quality programs within the public sector, etc., was something that I kept on getting more and more deeper and deeper into it. And it has continued, frankly, till today. Till I continued with my department, till one day I discovered for myself that now I also wanted to go out and do more of what I would say development work, or work in the field, and worked with UNICEF and private schools and public sector programs, and ended up with Azim Premji Foundation and University. In fact, Kinnari was the person who kind of brought me there, and it has continued. While doing all of these, because of the varied things that I was interested in, so again, 3 to 8 years, and I started getting into curriculum development, creating books for children, some programs for children, which were at that time computer had come, and in the government schools computers were being put up, and we had a lot of programs developed where the children could themselves work on it and learn the content or some basic skills, etc. And yeah, it still continues over a period with networking, with my own interest. Like Kinnari mentioned, I started my international connections. It very naturally happened, frankly. I did not plan any of it, and it was very interesting, especially my um, interactions at ANEC were very interesting, because I came to a space where this whole Asia Pacific region belt was coming in, and all the voices that we were listening to each other were all resonating with the same kind of challenges and that we were facing in the field. So here now I was also in a space where India, and a highly populated country and a poor country, was not the only one with its own challenges, but more or less the same challenges that one could see. So on one hand, my work expanded. On the other hand, my own understanding about young children, challenges in the field, what to do, how to build capacity, programs at all levels, all of that started expanding. And it still continues. I mean, yeah, I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's been a very rich and rewarding journey as well, and significant contribution to the domain as an academic, as a practitioner, and an informed practitioner, right? As a core training in that area. So, coming to our 1,000 days focus and beyond, right? One of the things that we recently read in the early childhood space, and something that's important, is the Lancet series and the research that gets published there. And one of the most recent one, published in November, as in just a few days ago, basically says that in the first 1,000 days, 1 in 3 children only happen to get an early childhood education environment, especially in low and middle income group countries, right? And India has now kind of brought early years 3 to 8 into the school education system. We are talking about 1,000 days. There is more and more awareness about it. You, as an academic and a practitioner of this area, how do you see this transition, the current trend, and the significance of this? And if you could spend some time on this question, the significance of first 1,000 days, and what is this trend that we see emerging, both at the grassroots level, at the policy level, and the community level?
So, as you said, yes, the especially the new education policy has brought this whole early childhood period into focus. And I think for most of us who've been working since years, we have seen our seniors struggling to get it into the mainstream. So it's a very satisfying situation. Since a long time, and I think this has also become popular, and we should thank media for it, that it's also become popular, this whole neuroscience perspective that came few decades back, since few decades, but in India it's been talked about since maybe last decade or 15 years or so, is this whole neuroscience brain development perspective, and brought into focus this whole idea that everything that's happening to the child, from in fact before birth to the period of 8 years, all these early years, it is so very important, because it impacts the actual development of and growth of the brain and the synaptic connections that take place in the brain, which are so very important for all our functions, whether cognitive, whether visually, seeing differences, language, listening to sounds, everything, building relationships. And this has brought everyone's focus not only on the 3 to 8 years, but also on the birth to 3 years. Thankfully, our own policy, though concentrating on the foundation years of 3 to 8, is also mentioning the early years, saying that they are very important, but something that has to be done or should be done for these young children at home also to quite a bit. At the why the 1,000 days are important. So besides saying this, as you mentioned, Kinnari, the earlier Lancet research is, by the way, Lancet is a medical journal which is very reputable, and the researches are very like supposed very authentic researches. So we do rely on the information that comes through, and the researchers have been saying that for young children to grow and see for a long time. I'm jumping from here and there. For a long time, we had for India and with the poverty context that we were in, for our majority of the children, nutrition and health happened to be major issues. We had high infant mortality rate, high neonatal mortality rates, high morbidity rates, and the whole focus was give them appropriate nutrition, provide with correct health facilities, and our children will grow and develop. And in spite of doing all that, a lot of the changes that we were seeing were very minute till this research is again with the larger disadvantaged population across countries has indicated that it is not just the nutrition and the health, but also what is called that as psychosocial stimulation or experiences that we give to young children, which actually help digest the nutrition, absorb the nutrition in the body. The active infant, both mentally and physically active infant, will be a healthier infant, again, mentally and physically. And therefore, all these three have to converge together. And all this leads us obviously to believe that whether in homes, because majority of our children are in homes and the data is showing they are still in homes. So whether in homes or outside care, all these three things will have to happen for our children to grow, develop. And obviously, if young children are at par in their growth and development, they will come with that level of development, that level of growth to preschool classrooms, early years classrooms, and it will therefore continue. So in a way, we will create a stronger base. Government has, of course, lot of, like as I mentioned, nutrition and health inputs are being given, but now they have also revived a crash scheme with an idea that a lot of women work outside home, especially the women who come from disadvantaged families, and they need support. They need the family needs support in terms of dual income, which is very important, and the women wanting to go out and work at the same time need support in terms of looking after the children, being looked after in a safe, secure place. And the crash scheme, Palna scheme, has been again revived, as it has been revived again as Palna scheme, and more crash centers are coming up with lot of NGOs working. We ourselves, the foundation itself, is also involved in some of these crash programs in some few states of India. And we need, therefore, it is so very important, and we need to focus not only on the children and the caregivers at the crash center, train them to give a good program, but also on the parents, on the mothers, I would say from the a pregnancy period. So pregnant lactating women need to know about a lot of these things before they give birth to their babies. Then mothers, parents, both families need to know what to do with these children, not just leave them and not pay attention to them. That children are young, they can understand, they have their own agency, we need to interact. And of course, the training programs. I think I can just go on, but maybe this is
Yeah.
the background for the birth to 3 years.
Yeah, no, I think very important for all of us to recognize the kind of effort that is going on, because invariably what the media highlights are all those gaps. And, we always think that there is nothing really happening. And many of us come face to face with the private delivery process, and that is what we are aware of. But then in terms of the state itself investing so much over the last decade and a half, and trying to focus on those critical aspects, which even in the last episode we had Ms. Uma speak about those aspects and the effort that goes in. Questions have started pouring in, Jigisha, and in fact one of it is related to this delivery aspect, saying that the available access to ECE is through Anganwadis for majority of our parents in our country. But then the quality is not what one would want or one expects, is the question. So how do we go about it is what is the question. But what I thought is that coming into Anganwadi space from, let's say, creche, which is now developing stronger, but Anganwadis are again institutions that have been set up many decades ago. And so these centers, there has been a lot of research. You and Kinnari, both of you have in fact looked at Anganwadi so closely as part of our Sangareddy initiative. If you could just throw a little light on what is it that you think is going well for Anganwadis. One, as I said, we will probably do another episode specifically looking at Sangareddy
Yeah.
and what we've done. So what is it that is going well? Is it all right to say that, well, Anganwadis are in shambles, so it will have to be an alternative delivery mechanism of ECE? Is that something that one should be thinking about? And two, while you speak about this whole 3 to 6 year age group, the criticality of it. Last episode as well, Ms. Uma spoke of how currently, even in the so-called good private preschool space, we know as to how much of wrong is happening in terms of how one understands about children and how we engage with children. So if you could just from your experience bring in that aspect of 3 to 6, and what is it that one does with these children, and if you could also connect it to our Anganwadi quality and what you have seen and your experience.
Kinnari, you can pitch in also, huh? Because as Rishi said, we've been working closely in that space.
Certainly, yes.
So I'll go reverse. So yeah, it's very interesting that called good schools, where we assume, or the private sector, which is supposed to be better always, is not always doing the right thing. With the research telling us, and with our own kind of backgrounds and the kind of work we've focused on, we feel that I feel also personally that creating curriculums and experiences for young children in this space of 3 to 6 years, where you actually keep the child and the child's development as focus, helps a lot in creating programs which will not only enhance their holistic development, but will also cater to their needs and interests. And if we keep that as a focus and not shift our focus to keeping some imagined goals in our mind, where we want children to just in future become better, better readers and writers, and just gain knowledge to perform better in first, second, third, fourth grade. I think that would really help. I share this with everyone, and I feel in not understanding the core of development, lot of decisions, and out of the goodness of people's heart, because everyone wants to do something good in the schools or good for their own children, but always not looking at the development perspective, or learning from the researches that are coming in. Lot of things that we should do later, we do first, and what we need to do in the beginning, we do later. The other day I was talking to some parent, and she was saying how the child, simple things like child to be sitting in one place, engaging in something for a little more time, was not the focus, but teaching English was the focus for the mother, for the young mother, and for the young child. Now, first, let the child sit, let the child interact, let the child discover the environment, play around, get into this all processes, and over a period, slowly the child will obviously knows the mother tongue, and therefore is going to learn different languages, right? I mean, so there is a lot of twist and a turn like this kind of happening, and I feel I want to say also to our audience that I personally always feel that all these decisions, whether we plan in advance for our programs or the ones we take at that moment in the classroom, if we base to a great extent on our own understanding of children development, what works with children, what doesn't, how do young children learn, And I think that comes only, unfortunately, from lot of reading and professional training that you get. But if you do that, I think lot of it works well for young children. And coming to Anganwadis, um, like any other sector, Anganwadis too have high quality programs going on. We have to look at the Anganwadi in its own context, and the context becomes very important. They are not high resourced private institutions with huge spaces, lot of material, though now Anganwadis do have the newer constructed buildings are extremely well ventilated, do have resources, but will never match the elite schools or elite preschools that are there. So we need to end the kind of pressures that the Anganwadi worker has. I think first and foremost, let us appreciate the fact that the Anganwadi has reached every nook and corner of India. So the smallest village and a habitat, and we have some person there who's touching the child, right, actually physically is able to come in contact with the child. I think that's something that's excellent. Also our shift that keeps on happening, our own larger goal shifting from nutrition and first the focus on integrated services, then the focus on nutrition and health, then again the focus on now the understanding that all three important, and bringing in all this also takes a little time for the person working there to shift. But our experiences have shown that given the right kind of information, helping them understand the value of their inputs to the Anganwadi teachers' input, with the children, interacting with the community, they do a wonderful job in that and context that they are. And we have had our own, and we've had data, and also coming from other researches, we've had this or sometimes just narrations, informal narratives. We've come to know that how children are coming from going away to private school because they think nothing is happening in the Anganwadi, and the minute things start happening, when the Anganwadi worker is aware, the teacher is aware, she starts creating a stimulating environment, we've the flux back coming towards the Anganwadi. Yes, Anganwadis are, I think, a great source. We should retain them, according to me. We need to build capacities not only of the Anganwadi teacher, but everyone up the line, so that the people who come and mentor and monitor programs also know what they should be looking for, and also giving inputs to the Anganwadi teacher and hand-holding her right there.
Right.
Because a lot of times trainings happen in one place, you talk, they do understand, but then transferring those concepts on field becomes important and sometimes challenging, which
Right.
we should be doing.
Right. And I think those are the aspects that we can bring in when we are going to do an episode on the
We
Anganwadis,
should.
right? Those
Yes.
challenges and how
Yes.
an Anganwadi teacher is challenged in many respects because of various lacuna within the system. And what is the way forward, right? What is the kind of support? You spoke about the support. In fact, there are a couple of questions. Kinnari, meanwhile, is there anything that you want to add
Yeah,
to what Jigisha
I
shared on
just
this
wanted
aspect?
to say yes, yes. I was just, seeing now the thrust on, as in the thrust that NEP has brought on early childhood, and this interactions that are happening, and or the focus on the 3 to 6 per se, right? And then there is this FLN, the literacy numeracy focus, and Nipun and other kinds of government initiatives. Just this Anganwadi worker, and I was also connecting to what Uma Mahadevan mentioned in the last session, that it's this person as just one of the many players who need to influence the system. And in our experience, and again, when we talk more about Sangareddy and in general, that workers and teachers, they call them teachers there, actually, when they get the necessary hand-holding, what Jigisha was referring to, consistent hand-holding, have them strategies to work with children, you see a complete shift in the way they are seen, in the way children are coming, the attendance, enrollment, and children then going into the public system and going more ready in a truer sense of readiness for schooling. Right? and it's a community level shift that's happening. So while it is a mammoth system, what that's what Mahadevan was trying to say, that it has several things that it's catering to. At the same time, the potential of the Anganwadi teacher can be gradually increased, and with support that is possible, and support of trained professionals, right? And that's where we as a community come in. One of the other incidences I just want to share, that many of our students are on field, for the last 12
Yeah.
weeks, our masters in education students. And a bunch of them have been working in Anganwadi centers, in one of our district locations. And it's interesting that the way the environment in those Anganwadi centers changed. The number of children who've come to these centers, the parent engagement at the centers, the confidence that the Anganwadi worker feels in how she can take up the program further, it's all changed, right? So it's
Changed.
it's just, I think, the momentum that's required, the direction that's required, and several policy initiatives are happening. There's more and more trust, certainly, that NEP has brought in, more and more focus, more and more people interested in the domain. But how prepared are we? That's the question I want to ask, that how much are we going with our understanding that, oh, some tech, I will share a little way trick to do this activity, and Anganwadi worker will learn it. Now, is that the approach that we will reach those teachers and children, or is there some more fundamental knowledge, and more fundamental ways of going about working with children, developing curricula that is needed, and that calls for professional training? So I think the interest is high, and one of the comments was that NEP has really brought that thrust, but interest is high. But we need professional training, and we as a sector, I mean, the social sector needs to acknowledge that we should have more and more preparation while we are trying to give inputs on the field. It shouldn't
Absolutely.
at the end kind of hamper what we are trying to do on the ground. Instead, it should facilitate this overall development that we really want to have for young children.
Absolutely. I think we were focusing on Anganwadis because the question by one of our audiences, Abhijit, was that. But then this holds true for the entire sector, Kinnari, as you're saying, right? I mean, it is
Absolutely.
for both the public and the private. I mean, even in the private
That's true.
preschool space, as
Yeah.
Jigisha, you were saying, right? I mean, with good intention that
Yeah.
you do something, but then, if you are not aware that whether that is appropriate or not, then there is an issues, and that can be set right only through capacity building,
Absolutely.
through strengthening
Absolutely.
of our own capacities that we come with into the space because of our interest, but then that will have to continuously be built. And
Yeah.
in fact, there are a series of questions, and I'm sure even you would have lost count of the time. We just have 15 minutes left.
So,
So
Rishi,
I yeah,
I
Kinnari.
really want to ask something to Jigisha, if I can go ahead with that.
Okay,
Mm, mm, mm.
because I was trying to weave together the questions and also
Mm.
put in something, and
All right,
then would you
please go
like to
ahead.
add in with that?
Sure.
Yes. So
Yeah.
there are questions around this phase of COVID, and what happened before COVID and after COVID. So Sudha Rani's question is: have you noticed any changes in children's development before and after? And that question has been further taken by Priya, who says that how children have been seen to be violent. In fact, Smita also is speaking about it. How pampering of children is probably something that happened while they continue to be only at home, and then children are seen to be violent and rude, not listening. So how does one manage all these things? In fact, a question which came in earlier was by a special educator who says, sometimes I face problems where some students draw cartoon pictures on every page repeatedly. What can but of course, the question here is something that all of us would want to jump to respond to, but I think, Jigisha, you're in the right place. What do I do to stop it? Is the question. But over to you. So, children's behavior, one, of course, COVID, pre-COVID, after COVID, how has changed, and then some saying that we've seen the change. There is much more let's say children being a little rude and violent, and also things such as this, wherein I mean, one can see such excitement in something like that, but then for a teacher, I'm sure it's challenging as well.
Kinnari, you want to add to this, or no? It was a separate question,
I
and should I
no, as in
respond?
one of the things on the COVID bit particularly, I just wanted to say, and I take that opportunity to also announce our next speaker, who's going to be a pediatrician, right? And some of these very characteristic differences that are being reported, of course, as teachers we are seeing, and as educators we see in the classrooms. But if there are these other larger shifts we are seeing, I think it will be great opportunity to also
Yes.
kind of get some of these more from our next speaker. So yes, of course, we hear Jigisha now, but we should continue this dialogue when
We
we
should continue it. Yeah, it would be great to have a pediatrician answering these questions. Just a very brief one. Also, looking at the time, the focus of young children need a lot of social experiences also, right? I mean, they need social interactions. They need emotional um, opportunities for emotional expression, understanding emotions. For all these, the core to a child's development and learning is experiences. And COVID did change our lives, as all of us know. It did restrict our children, isolated them. They had the only opportunity to see other faces other than their family members was the computer screen, or sometimes for a lot of children, even a small cell phone, actually, not even a computer screen. And the child being at home, in lot of homes, both parents were working, so they were into their work and the child was in front of the screen. So obviously the child has missed out on so many essential interactions, social interactions of building friendships, fighting, disagreeing, negotiating, sharing, coming together, cooperating. I mean, I'm using these words which are so much part of my social emotional vocab, but these are genuine experiences that a child gets, which builds the child's skills. And therefore the child doesn't know what to do in a new setting with so many peers. Whatever was happening to that child when the child first entered, we all say the transition from home to school is so important, and the first thing the child faces is this little people like him or her around, where he was the only or she was the only focus at home. Now he's or she's competing with all these other people and doesn't have the skills. Same is happening with these children. They have not been able to build these skills. So we will have to design our programs. We will have to shift the focus of our program to a great extent to enhancing socio-emotional development. It should be in naturally. Even the Lancet series that we were both quoting say that how important it is to bring socio-emotional experiences to the school or an institutional setting for children. Besides cognitive, it is just not enough to provide experiences that enhance only cognitive development of young children. So I think that's my very, very brief answer in brief. I think it should be something that you will all find very interesting to discuss in the next episode.
But I mean, there are so many questions. Though I said I will bring all of them into our conversation, I don't think it would be possible. But
Yeah.
then, Jigisha, but then if you could directly answer this particular one, right? Though it's from a special educator, Madhura, I think, but then it's something that is for all
The
of us.
cartoon. Huh.
Cartoon in every page is what the
Yeah.
children are doing. So
So for me, a lot of these things are. I mean, one, of course, I need to know more about the child personally. Frankly, for that individual child, his or her condition, age, etc., etc. But just a very commonsensical, I mean, general answer. I shouldn't say a commonsensical. General answer is that. So what's wrong in the child drawing cartoon on every page? The child is trying to put her identification mark on every page. And if that is going to help the child move from one to another, I don't see anything wrong. If that is the only thing the child is doing and you do want to transfer the child, taking that cartoon that interests the child so much, you need to then slowly shift the child's attention to other achieving other goals or other outcomes, learning outcomes that you have set for the child. is a very brief, again, a brief answer to that very complicated thing, and which we can discuss at length on and on.
Kinnari,
Kinnari, you want to add?
you
Yeah.
No, not add to this, but I would rather, want to shift a little and come back, Jigisha, to your work and this understanding. There is a lot of content today. Content in the media, content in the form of workbooks, content in the form of worksheets, and a whole range. And you worked in that, right? Now, when we look at this early childhood sector, and when we talk of the teacher, we talk of teacher educators, we talk of policy advocates, but there is this larger system that's working towards, right, and offering toys and games and material for children, right? Now, the question I have is that you, as a trained early childhood professional, a trained child development professional, and the work that you've done, right, how would you see our role as trained professionals in a whole range of things that are getting offered to children today? And where do you see this shift that we need to make as a society, and again, our preparedness as professionals to be contributing to these, what one can say as larger resources and environment that is getting created for children, both inside and outside home and in center-based spaces. So where is this, the qualities that we bring as professionals as against people who are just creating content, the distinctions there? If you could spend, I know we'll soon be running out of time, but if you can spend some thoughts on this.
So, range of things, as Kinnari said, books for children, audiovisual programs for children, audio programs for children, toys, all kinds of learning material. If we are trained as early childhood care and education professionals, if we have a core training in understanding our children, their context, we are the ones who should be able to provide the content to the person, the creative person who's creating all of that. We could be helping people understand what is the level of information that you would, let's say, a 3-year-old child be able to grasp. How will the child be able to understand a particular concept? What kind of language would you use? What illustrations would you bring which will make sense? Will say, if I'm putting an illustration forth, somebody showing me a very attractively, highly colorful illustration of a child or of a flower or anything, will that make more sense to a 3-year-old, or will just a pencil black and white drawing of a flower will convey a better conceptual understanding to the child? The language, level of language to be used, books, if storybooks are being created, how many new words would you introduce? What kind of new words would you introduce in that story? How much repetition do you need for children to understand, feel comfortable with the language? Bring in the context. We are the persons who understand the context through our professional training. Again, we've tried and understand. So say we've had, and people have started venturing out. So we've had students who look at folk tales, evaluate them, judge whether the content is right for, say, a 6 to 8-year-old or a 3 to 6-year-old, or if it is not, bring it to a level. If the content is the kind that they think a 3 to 6-year-old needs to know, they will use a language that would be understood by the child. Maybe bring an audio visual for telling that story, at the same time bringing a story book to support both. These kind of decisions that come about bringing in the context, bringing in the understanding of development of a child, the learning processes that the child undergoes, are something that I feel as a profession, we early childhood education people, all of you here who are interested, we should be able to do. And therefore all these new and it is the market is being bombarded. Please remember, we are the schools, and school space is one place, or organizations who've come up directly working with children now that it has come into the policy. But with that, newer books, newer learning material, newer toys, everything new audiovisual material is coming into it. And we should be and we should try and create spaces that we are part of a team there and helping them make these decisions. And we have had a few students and publishing houses, in creating television programs, for example. They are, but they are individuals here and there. We need to be now as a community being, we should be in all these spaces that are there. And even professionally, early understanding early childhood education or getting trained in early childhood education doesn't limit your work only to being a teacher or a teacher trainer or a curriculum developer. It can be so much expanded. Podcasts you can be creating for parents and teachers. I mean, everywhere you could be there, bringing parks, play spaces for children in the community. Everywhere we can be giving our inputs.
Absolutely. In fact, you mentioned, in the very end, you did bring in the other very important stakeholder, the parent themselves, right? The parents themselves, because we are, of course, focusing on the educators and others in the formal spaces. But in fact, one of the questions by Anubhav was, how do we bridge this gap between, what the educators learn and become more and more, let's say, aware, and how do we now also share that with parents? So I think all of us together will have to continue to do the work that we are doing. And I think, Jigisha, initially while you were talking about your journey, you spoke of how everything was so exciting because there was so much to learn. And we know that every time we speak to you, it's so exciting for us because you are coming with new things, because you are a lifelong learner, and you in fact share that very aspect with us, making us all be very curious to learning all the time. And I think that really is what particularly all of us educators, whichever state, but particularly so for the early years, that we need to keep our minds open. There is so much of research happening with new things all the while. And I think this is the right time to Kinnari also bring you back in to talk about what is the new thing that we have on offer at the Azim Premji University, because we're just a couple of minutes away from our closing of this episode. So would you like to share with our participants?
So, this has been again one of those rich conversations, and it's just opening up things, right? And like we were discussing last time, that at the individual level, how is it that we can really get into the sector, right? And the need for professionals, I think, as the society in our country today, we are moving towards more and more informed work. With our cultural richness and informed work. So we've been offering programs in education, and within that early childhood education, a diploma program in early childhood education, learning disabilities and inclusive education at Azim Premji University, with this thrust, with the work that is needed to be done on the ground. A very clear program, a full-time 2-year master's program in early childhood education is something that we are launching in July 2025. Just to quickly kind of take you through the thrust of this program and the various aspects. So we are looking at this program like, this need of building professionals, informed professionals who can effectively contribute to the gamut of things that are required in early childhood care and education, from the early years, really the first 1,000 days, up to 8 years of age, right? And we look at this program to be able to have professionals develop in 2 tracks. One is a practice-based track, work in an organization, do an internship, and have a research thrust, for students who want to pursue higher education and want to look at some critical research questions and pursue a research track therein. In terms of the courses, the core content areas, we're looking at this development. We've been talking so much about development and learning, understanding ECCE as a domain, context of children, childhoods in India, global childhoods, looking at early childhood policy and system. We have a long history and a rich history. And how we are today post NEP, right? It's just one of those milestones, really. But there has been so much work that has happened, and much more needs to be done. Look at programs, look at early stimulation. Again, we've been talking of the first 1,000 days and early intervention and children with disabilities, early identification, right? introducing to research, because all of us come with different backgrounds as undergraduate students. Many of us may have psychology backgrounds, many of may have a general undergraduate degree, right? Any of us but to be able to look at things in a more scientific way, look at skills of observations, methods, tools required to do systematic research. So one of the core courses would work and look at that, help prepare our students with that. The range of curriculum discussions, we were discussing so much on language, but there are similar questions on numeracy, on where is this number sense that the child is developing, the role of physical motor development. We've been talking of this in our previous session and this session, socio-emotional learning, and what is that environment that is required for children. And finally, the carers, the caregivers, the educators, the professional development, and what is this journey? How distinct are we from, say, the teaching as a profession, or being an educator and the role and working with young children? Where does caring, educating come together, right? And work ethics of working with children, right? So there's a whole gamut of body of literature, a domain in itself, which I think, again, in India, child development departments have been focusing on that. Many other universities offer that, but we are very excited at Azim Premji University to be bringing this comprehensive program at a stage when we really need professionals on the ground. And I think, as a body, in the last question that we were just discussing, the market needs to understand, right? Others need to understand that we need the value that a trained professional would bring into their products, into the material that is getting created, is going to be of a different order. And we need to kind of move towards that. So we are hoping that with this program, it will be one more of those contributions that Azim Premji University would make to have professionals who would be interested in working on the ground and pursuing systematic research also in the area, and build that research, belt that, again, we were speaking in our last session. Yes, so that's the program. And if you wish to contact, please reach out to Outreach, the admissions emails that has been reaching to all of you, and keep joining these conversations. I think that's something going to be quite exciting. Rishi.
So just to close, I mean, there have been more questions. As I said, we've not addressed all of them. In fact, Devineni's question was on what is it that is there in kind curriculum, and I think these would take a lot of unpacking. Maybe another episode again. I mean, we're in every episode coming up with a list of potential episodes, right? So one on the curriculum and pedagogy, wherein we can go further into this. Manjula's asking for references of books and play materials. Again, I think different ways in which we could also reach out to educators is something that we could definitely think about. Storytelling involving children in terms of how to engage with stories, both for parents, educators. These are aspects I think that we will try and bring to you as well in future episodes. We've run out of time. We're already 3 minutes over from the time that we had allotted. Thank you, Jigisha. Thank you, Kinnari. I think it's been wonderful for me to just listen to both of you, experts of the domain. And thanks for all our audiences who have joined us live for those questions, which made it even more insightful in terms of what we could bring out from Jigisha particularly. So look forward to once again having you all over for our next episode. We will announce the date soon. The time would be same. And
December
as Kinnari already said, 4th.
December 4th.
We already got the date.
Yes, December 4th, we will have a senior pediatrician with us who's worked for several decades in this area at the national and at state level. And it will give a different perspective. Medicine is one of those very closely connected area to early childhood care and education. And they actually get a lot of what we teachers and educators face inside classrooms, but there are similar things that go to doctors and pediatricians. So we are hoping that it will again open up the sector for us, let us have a little deep dive into it, and open up more areas for conversations going forward. Yeah. So looking forward to that on December 4th. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rishi.
Thanks, everyone. See you all on December 4th.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rishi.
So much.